Welcome to Vibrational Revelations. I'm Elena.
I am Alejandro.
And we're absolutely grateful to have this incredible journey of exploring our matrix, our reality through public figures, historic figures, because it is through this journey that we tend to understand the depth of what makes our human experience so enriching and beautiful and colorful. And yes, thank you for being a part of our episodes. Again, every episode, I think we're very clear, but I just want to make sure that we're as clear as possible. Judgment aside, every single human being on this planet plays an absolutely divine role and contributes to the human collective. Okay. So as Alejandro says, it's more a matter of our choice where we want to stand, whether we want to stand on the side of shadow or on the side of light. And in the universe, everything is seeking balance. So therefore, when you see all these negative, disappointing things going on in the world, remember that the light is rising just as much.
I agree. I am Alejandro Ferradas and I endorse this message.
Okay. All right, so let's dive into the classical artist. Rembrandt, he was a Dutch painter. He was considered one of the greatest visual artists in the history of art. And of course, the most known and famous Dutch painters in the Dutch history, of course, besides Van Gogh, which we'll go into. So his overall incarnation was at the frequency of 100. So he incarnated at the frequency of 100. He was born at the frequency of 100. And 100 is a frequency of fear. And his overall frequency was also 100. It's interesting because for those of you, I'm sure a lot of you guys know who Rembrandt was. And if you think of his art, I know to me, the first thing that comes up is the dark, very dark colors, right? The really heavy dark colors in his oil paintings. So, and I could see how fear is reflected through that. So health he viewed through the lens of grief, 75. Finances he viewed through the lens of fear, 100. Here's a couple of things that you guys will find in today's revelations, which we think are so interesting, is the creativity and the intuition that will be an undercurrent of all of these artists that is very revealing. Creativity for Rembrandt was 950. So the level of enlightenment. Relationships, Rembrandt viewed through the frequency of 30, which is shame.
Guilt.
Oh, guilt, sorry. I always want to mix those two up. I have no idea why. Personal growth, he viewed through the lens of fear, 110. Philanthropy, through the lens of guilt, 30. Intuition for Rembrandt was 850. 850, again, is the frequency of enlightenment. He enjoyed playing his divine role, 97%. Again, for those of you that are new, you'll see that you don't have to be at a high frequency to enjoy your role. So in his case, he was enjoying his role of being at 100 frequency at 97%. His ego ruled his decision-making 100%, and he was actually ruled by his superior ego. So this is a concept we started introducing probably a couple of episodes ago. So in his case, his superior ego was at 100%. He was 97% in the now. His integrity was at 46%. Self-awareness at 94%. Clarity at 98%. Again, we're reading right now Rembrandt. His alignment with his divine purpose was 100%, and 100% alignment with his personal purpose. So, as we like to say, this is absolutely an Oscar-worthy role that he played his role really, really well. Of course, we started to introduce compassion, how compassionate he was, and his compassion was at 56%, right? And empathy at 94%. So there's your Dutch artist Rembrandt. Now let's move on to somebody who's more cheerful, Claude Monet. I'm impartial to, I think, all the Impressionist art. This is one of my favorite movements. And of course, I've been to Claude Monet's house in Giverny. So for those of you that had the opportunity to visit, it's absolutely beautiful. He was a French artist and founder of the Impressionist paintings. So the famous water lilies, right? All the beautiful art that he created was mostly created in his home in Giverny, and of course his famous garden. So he incarnated at the frequency of 250. He was born at the frequency of 200. So 250 is a frequency of neutrality. He was born at the frequency of courage. His overall frequency was 500, which is love. Health, he viewed health through the lens of courage, 210. Finances, through the lens of love, 500. Creativity, he had an enlightened relationship with his creativity at 850. Relationships he viewed through the lens of neutrality, 250. Personal growth, he was committed to personal growth at the frequency of 500. Love relationship. Philanthropy, he viewed through the lens of courage, 200. And his intuition was at 700, the frequency of enlightenment. He enjoyed playing his divine role of Claude Monet at 97%. His ego was at 89%. And again, we looked at which ego ruled most of his decision making, and it was mostly 54% out of that 89% was ruled by the inferior ego, which is not enoughness. But overall, they were kind of balanced out. It was 54 and 46% out of 89. In the now, he was 97% of the time. He was 100% in his integrity. He was 99% self-aware, 100% in his clarity. He was 100% aligned with his divine purpose and 100% aligned with his personal purpose. His compassion was at 100%, and his empathy was at 100%. Another Oscar-worthy, right, role. Incredible. Claude Monet. Vincent van Gogh. You know, today I decided in the morning to watch a documentary I haven't seen. So for those of you maybe that can look up or are interested to look up more of Vincent van Gogh's life, you can go on YouTube and look up an incredible documentary. If you'd like, I can post this later and share that with all of you as well. But he was a Dutch post-impressionist painter who actually created over 2,100 artworks. And most of them were created in the last 2 years of his life. And what I found that I didn't know before, actually, his mom and dad, his dad was a pastor or a minister. They had a baby boy who was named Vincent van Gogh, who died at birth. And then a year later, Vincent van Gogh was born, and exact same name was given to him. But his parents, his mom never really bonded with him. And since birth, he never felt this bond to his mom. So he always felt rejected, like something was really wrong with him. So he was born and always compared to the dead brother that he had, like that, the brother that passed over with the same exact name was worshipped and looked at the ideal child, and he was always looked down upon. So I thought that was a very interesting insight. I'll definitely share the video for those of you that are interested. So Vincent van Gogh incarnated at the frequency of 200, was born at the frequency of fear, 100, and his overall vibrational frequency was 200, which is courage. He viewed his health through the frequency of grief, 75. Finances were at a frequency of 110, fear, which absolutely correlates to his life. Creativity for Vincent van Gogh was 850. Relationships, he viewed through the lens of 75, which is grief. And actually in this documentary, what I found out is he he was seeking out females who were older, relationships with older women, but also those that were suffering, that were grieving, that had some kind of loss. This is what he was attracted to. And it's interesting because in the relationship frequency, we did read him at 75. Another interesting thing that I found out about him is that he actually wanted to be a minister. So he was not an artist until, I think he painted his first painting at 28 years old. So personal growth, he was committed to at the frequency of 600. So that makes sense also, right? He was fully committed to his personal growth. So this is a frequency of peace. Philanthropy, so this is the art of sharing. He viewed through the frequency of love, 500. Intuition, his intuition was a frequency of 850, which is the frequency of enlightenment. And something else I found out, he was, of course, in deep poverty. His brother was the one that was paying for his canvas and his oil so he can paint. But he was very hungry. He was a hungry, starving artist. And actually, he was eating, through this video, you'll see he was eating a lot of the paint and drinking turpentine. So actually, they think that a lot of the mental disorders that also contributed to how he lived out his life had to do with lead that was in his paint that he was consuming. So it created a lot of neurological disorders, right? I thought that was very interesting. So ego, he was in his ego 50%, but here's the very interesting thing. He was ruled 100% by his inferior ego. So his whole life, he felt like he was not good enough. In the now, he was 98% of the time. He was in his integrity 100%. He was in his self-awareness 98%. In his clarity 68%. Alignment with his divine purpose was 52%. And alignment with his personal purpose at 64%. And this is actually a great question that came up last time during our episode that we did. What happens when somebody commits suicide? And this was a question that was raised, right? How does it play out into the divine role percentage? And what we're seeing, and I think we will do an episode on people who have committed suicide, is in this case, you can see it very clearly, is he was very far from his divine purpose alignment because of him committing suicide. Oh yes, he enjoyed his divine role 38%. So he didn't really enjoy it. And his alignment with personal purpose was at 64%. Now, his compassion was at 100%, and his empathy was at 100%.
So alignment with divine purpose is at 52%.
Yes, and personal yes,
64.
64, yes. All right, last but not least on my end, before Alejandro dives into his part, is Pierre-Auguste Renoir, also my all-time personal favorite artist, French artist and a leading painter in the development of the Impressionist style. His overall frequency is 475. He incarnated at the frequency of 400, which is reason, and he was born at the frequency of courage, 200. He viewed his health through the frequency of fear, 110, finances through the frequency of 200, courage. Here's the very interesting part. His creativity was at a frequency of 1000, which is fully integrated experience in the human, for the human experience, right? Highest frequency that's possible for the human experience. We've read, I think, who did we read? Leonardo da Vinci. We explored in one of our revelations who had this as well. So this is incredible. And of course, besides the avatars that had this 1000 frequency throughout, he did. Relationships, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, viewed through the frequency of pride, 175. Personal growth, he viewed through the frequency of enlightenment, 750. Philanthropy through the lens of 400, which is reason. Intuition through the frequency again of enlightenment, 750. He enjoyed playing his role 98% of the time, I guess 98%. Ego, that ruled his decision-making was 97%. And he somewhat had a balance, a little more leaning towards superior ego at 58% out of 97. In the now, he was 99%. He was 98% in his integrity. His self-awareness and clarity were both at 100%. His alignment with his divine and personal purpose were at 100%. His compassion was at 69% and empathy at 98%.
Mm-hmm. This is a great example too, that not necessarily everyone that is vibrating below the 500 level is expected to be at a lower or experiencing lower levels when it comes to being in the present moment or in the now. So in his case, he's vibrating at 475, but he is 99% in the present moment or in the now. And that is what I mentioned this, I believe, during our last Q&A, because Margaret, I think, pointed it out, that it also has a lot to do with their profession and what they do in life. You know, in his case, being an artist and involved in his aspect of creativity most of the time, which he is at 1,000, that is helped him to remain in the present moment of this and have this level of 99%.
Yes. You know, I think I feel when you're connected to all of your senses, and I think artists do such a beautiful job of being so connected, right? Because they become the medium through which the divine is being expressed, right? So it gives them a better opportunity of being in the now, more present. So they're actually living the very, very essence of what it means to be in the now in most cases. Right?
So, even though he had a 97% in the ego,
yes,
he was able to remain in the present moment.
That's a great thing you remembered. Yeah. All right. Spaniards now.
Yes. España.
Yes.
Pablo Picasso. His overall frequency is 175. He incarnated at 175 and was born at the frequency of 100. So in Euro 175, which is pride, and then he dropped down to fear at 100. When it comes to health, he is at 100, the level of fear. That means that he was experiencing a lot of resistance in that aspect. Finances, 400, the level of reason, high intellect. Creativity, 850. That's similar to Vincent, was it?
Yeah,
Vincent.
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh, yes.
And Claude Monet.
Relationships, 55, which is the level of apathy. So he was somewhat disconnected there. No? I created a shield to protect himself. Personal growth, 225, which is the level of courage. You know, approaching neutrality. Philanthropy, 30, which is the level of guilt. Intuition, 600. That's the level of peace. So he's definitely, I was relying on his intuition. And since it was a peaceful relationship with his aspect of intuition, and for him being an artist, he was definitely benefiting from that in order to create, right? At 850. So he was no doubt in the flow more often than not when it comes to creating. Now, when it comes to in the joy, how much he was enjoying the role he decided to play in this lifetime, or during his lifetime, it was at 86%. In the ego, how much he was paying attention to the ego, 94%. And out of the 94%, the superior ego was dictating there, no? Or participating more often at 96%. that superior is the voice that tells you that you're more than enough and there's nothing to be learned. No one can teach you anything. You know it all, right?
The best of the best.
The best of the best.
Mm-hmm.
In the now, or in the present moment, he was 91%. And again, this is another great example. Being at 175 as the overall frequency, he was still in the present moment 91% of the time, due to his glorious moments of creativity and intuition. He was in the flow there. When it comes to his integrity, is at 88%. Self-awareness, 92%. Clarity, 95%. His alignment with his divine purpose and his personal purpose were at 100%, both. Another Oscar nominee.
Totally. Amazing.
His compassion, 68%. Empathy, 90%. Wonderful. That's Pablo Picasso. Now, Salvador Dali. His overall frequency, 225. That is the level of courage, first level of true courage. He incarnated 200, again, the level of courage. And he was born at the frequency of fear, 100. So he was definitely impacted by whatever was his mother was experiencing at the time, right, when he was in utero. Now, health, he is at 110, the level of fear, similar than Pablo Picasso.
I think that a lot of them have that.
Finances, 500, which is the level of love. He was in the flow when it comes to the aspect of finances. Creativity, 1000. Well, same
Renoir.
thing. Renoir.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Relationships, 100, the level of fear. Personal growth, 750. That is the level of enlightenment, right? Philanthropy, 500. Level of love. Intuition, 540. The level of joy. He was having a joyful relationship with his intuition. And paired with this creativity 1000, he was, just create amazing things, right? Beyond what we could
you could see
understand
it in his art.
at the time. Yes.
Amazing.
Beyond everyone's times, I will say, time.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to being enjoying the role that he played during his lifetime, he was at 95%. So he was definitely having fun with his role, entertaining himself very well. When it comes to be paying attention to the ego, 94%. And out of the 94%, he was paying attention more to the inferior version of the ego at 91%. Amazing, right? Because he created so many magical things, amazing things, and still the inferior version of the ego was participating in his experience, right? So he was able to overcome that. When it comes to in the now or in the present moment, he was at 92%. So he was 92% of the time in the now, in the flow. When it comes to integrity, he was at 94%. So he was very loyal and faithful to his own core values and beliefs, right? Not willing to bend his own rules easily, or at all, I will say, in a way. Self-awareness, 97%. Clarity, 100%. So he was very clear about his vision of life and his mission in life. When it comes to his alignment with his divine purpose and his personal purpose, he was at 100% with both. Another Oscar nominee.
Yeah.
Compassion, 94%. So he was very compassionate person, right? When it comes to empathy, 100%. Wonderful. That was Salvador Dali. Last but not least, Sandro Botticelli. His overall frequency was 200, level of courage. He incarnated at 200 and was born at the frequency of 100, the level of fear. That one was also impacted by whatever his mother was experiencing at the time, right? While he was in utero. Health, he was at 200, the level of courage. Finances, 100, level of fear. Creativity, 850. Most of them have very high numbers there.
Yes, they all
The aspect of
have
creativity.
this.
That's why they were able to create so many beautiful and magical things. No? Relationships at 125. I think almost all of them have low numbers when it comes to relationships, right?
Let me see, 75, 175. Monet had, okay, but he had a family. Yeah, besides
Right?
Monet.
Monet was the only one.
Yes,
They were all below 200, which is the
imbalance is there.
Imbalance is there for sure. Personal growth, 125. Philanthropy, 125. That is the level of desired. And all desires are really never fully satisfied, right? But at this level, of course, we tend to have desires rather for attention, power, or it could be also addictions, right? Well, addictions to also attention and power, or addictions to alcohol, substances. Intuition, 850. That is definitely relying on his intuition, right?
Yes.
Wow.
That's something they all have in common. It's high frequency, intuitive frequency, and creativity.
Yes.
This gave us a lot of insight.
Yes. When it comes to in the joy, how much he was enjoying the role he played in his lifetime, 95%. Most of them also enjoyed it, with the exception of Van Gogh, right? At 38%.
38, right.
When it comes to the ego, in the ego, 97%. And out of the 97%, it was 95% paying attention to a superior version of the ego, and only 5% paying attention to the inferior version of the ego. When it comes to in the now or in the present moment, 95%. Again, another perfect example of what we mentioned earlier, right?
Yes.
When it comes to his integrity, he was at 56%. So he was definitely bending his own rules and right?
I think because of the addiction frequencies, 125 throughout. Yeah, the integrity.
Maybe it could be for attention and power, and in order to accomplish that, he thought he needed to bend his rules and deviate from his own core values and beliefs, right? I'm sure maybe he was a people pleaser as well. Could be.
Of course, the most famous painting that he did is the Birth of Venus, right? For those of you that remember this image, right? A woman, naked woman, coming out or standing on the oyster. Yes.
Shell, yes. The intention of to draw attention and create a controversy. Now, when it comes to self-awareness, at 98%, clarity, 98%. And his alignment with divine purpose and personal purpose were both at 100%. Amazing. Compassion, he was at 65%. And I will say that again, in order to keep feeding the unsatisfied craving of his addiction, whatever that was, right? Attention, power, or substances. He was bending his own rules, deviating from his core values and beliefs, and that he was now willing to. He didn't have enough compassion for people, for those that were not complying with what will fit his agenda, right?
But also it's
Will
like lack of
contribute.
compassion for self.
Yes, definitely.
Right?
Everything begins with
Self.
self. Yes. When it comes to empathy, 99%.
Yes.
Wonderful. That was Sandro Botticelli.
Yes. Dive through history. You know, I think for me, this upcoming weekend, I think I'd like to explore more of their documentaries. Because some of them I've known a lot about their history, and others, I'm sure there's something new we can all learn. In the meantime, let me just share screen and go through at least images of those famous artists. Let's see, slideshow. Okay. Here we go. There they are. Pablo Picasso, Salvador Dali, Sandro Botticelli, Renoir, Monet, Van Gogh, and Rembrandt. And of course, for those of you that know you guys have booked your readings with us, we're so grateful, and know that there's more and more things we are actually exploring in the readings, in the new readings we're including. And probably in the next month or so, we'll be coming out with a new package that we'll be offering to our members first. Without having to talk to us, you guys will be able to most likely book your frequency readings for you, your loved ones, and you won't have to speak with us. So this will be a little bit of a different service, but I think for those that are wanting this information, it will be available. We're making it available.
Yes.
Yes. Here's a testimonial from Gladys. So I'll read it out. Or would you like to read it?
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Okay.
Gladys, we haven't heard from her in a while. No. We should contact her and see how she's doing.
Yes.
Gladys says, I had a timeline frequency reading, which, at the beginning we called it timeline, now is lifetime reading.
She did both.
With Alejandro and Elena a few weeks ago, and I was floored with the facts about my life, childhood trauma, and even things that happened in my parents' lives when my mother had me in her womb that they revealed to me. They were able to uncover all this during the reading. I was in tears because they revealed to me things that nobody knew and things that I had put on the back of my mind for fear and shame. Yet those things were getting me stuck in my personal, romantic, and financial life. After only one session with both of them, things started shifting in my life, in my attitude. I am thrilled and blessed to have found Alejandro and Elena. I am now ready to dive deeper and book a quantum analysis with Elena. I can't wait for all the doors of blessing that will open in my life. If you're looking to break away from everything that is holding you back and create a successful, joyful life, book your session with them today. Gladys.
That's nice. So there it is. You guys, for the members, for now, we're offering, of course, 15% off of this service. And now we will take questions.